It's really popular to supplement with glycine today, but it may not be the fix-all, everybody should take pounds of glycine supplement that a lot of people make it out to be. And when we go over the benefits that can come, you can see why people get so excited and they're just like, scoop, scoop, another scoop, do more, okay, and they're just, glycine. But we need to understand there's downsides. We need to understand that there can be problems that can create for some people. We need to understand who should not supplement with glycine. So in this video, we're going to go over those things and help you understand why so many people are deficient in glycine, but also who really should not supplement with glycine. And if you're one of those individuals, we'll give you some alternatives that can help you get some of these benefits without creating all of this trouble. So glycine is an amino acid that has a lot of functions in the body that we're going to go over, and the body can actually produce its own glycine. So it's not considered an essential amino acid. The problem is the body only produces about 2.5 to 3 grams, when a lot of people feel like the body can utilize like 10 to 15 grams per day, especially when it comes to collagen production. And that collagen production is really important, like for our skin and all of our connective tissues and all this crazy stuff that goes on in the body. So we really want to make sure that we have enough glycine. And we don't get as much glycine in our diet like we did before when we used to eat nose to tail and grandma and grandpa were kind of cooking all the bones and every single thing got used. A lot of us just eat the muscle meat and that's pretty much all we're taking in. So we're not bringing in as much glycine. And another really big problem is that it's really common for people to have digestive malfunctions where they can't break proteins down into those amino acids that the body needs for building blocks. And glycine is one of those amino acids. So if someone's not eating enough protein or bringing in enough good sources of glycine, or if they don't have enough stomach acid to really break their food down correctly, then they're not going to be able to access the nutrients in that food. We have lots of videos on that. I'm not going to go over that, but I'll have links in the description below. But let's look at some of these benefits that can come from supplementing with glycine and giving the body more of what it can use. So one of the biggest benefits is just the anti-aging and anti-inflammatory effects that can come from the body's ability to create more of this collagen. And also glycine helps the body produce glutathione, which is one of the body's biggest antioxidants, which can get rid of a lot of this oxidation and inflammation that's going on inside the body. So that's a really big benefit. Cognitive support. Glycine is actually a neurotransmitter, and they also feel like a lot of this cognitive benefit could be coming from the improved sleep that people experience when taking glycine, and we'll talk about the sleep in just a second. Another benefit can come for cardiovascular health by lowering blood pressure. It's basically a vasodilator that can kind of dilate that vascular system, open it up a little bit, allow the blood to flow a little bit easier and lower blood pressure. So that can be a really big deal. A lot of people end up less alive because of cardiovascular disease. Muscle recovery, it's very popular for muscle recovery. Basically, glycine is pro-anabolic. So that means it pushes the body more into that anabolic nighttime state where the body's very good at rebuilding and repairing. So it can repair and rebuild those muscles a little bit faster, but it's also giving the body the resources that it needs to rebuild. Remember, the body uses amino acids as its building blocks. So when it's looking to rebuild and repair something, glycine is not only providing some of those building blocks, it's pushing the body more into the state where it's better at doing those activities. So that can be very effective. It can also bring benefits for insulin sensitivity and those that are dealing with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and their cells not really listening to insulin when they bring in carbs and sugars. So glycine has the ability to push the body into a situation where now the insulin becomes more responsive. Now it becomes more efficient at processing those carbs and sugars, so a person doesn't need to make as much insulin to process that same amount of carbs or sugars. So now insulin can come down, improve insulin resistance, and all that inflammation and all the crazy stuff that we know comes along with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes type situations. And a really big one is that it has the ability to improve sleep. Again, there's a lot of theories as to why this happens, but we view this as glycine is pro-anabolic. So it's pushing the body more into that nighttime state where the body is very good at sleeping. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, it has the ability to quiet the mind and kind of slow down that mind activity. But we kind of view this as it also has benefits for the autonomic nervous system by pushing the body out of that sympathetic fight or flight side of the autonomic nervous system. A lot of people can't sleep because their body's stuck in that fight or flight state, where the body is supposed to be very good at reacting and fighting off a lion and doing all these things that we need to do to survive. But the body's stuck there, it's not going to be very good at sleeping. So it appears that glycine has the ability to push a person out of that severe sympathetic state, which could really improve sleep for a lot of people. So to see benefits in these areas, most people seem to supplement with between 3 to 6 grams per day. And taking it at night is a more appropriate thing to do, since it's pushing the body more into that anabolic nighttime state. You wouldn't want to do that in the morning. And yet some people talk about using as much as like 10 to 15 grams per day. I'm certainly not telling you to do that. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you any medical advice or telling you what dose you should be taking. I'm basically a professional stand-up comic turned nutrition author, because when I lost my voice for 8 years and 23 different doctors couldn't figure that out, I had to dig for my own answers. So now for 20 years, I've been teaching health professionals in more than 40 countries how to help their clients fix the actual underlying causes of problems instead of just covering up the symptoms. And when we're looking at fixing the underlying causes, we need to understand these downsides that can come from supplementing with glycine. And in a lot of cases, when someone doesn't get the reaction that they expect, they'll call this a paradoxical reaction, which basically means this isn't usually what happens, but we don't really understand why, so it's paradoxical. That's a fancy name. So when we're looking at something like sleep, a study could show that, wow, 51% of people slept better when they supplemented with glycine, but 49% didn't sleep for the next 4 months. But still, the title of that study could be Glycine Helps People Sleep Better, because the majority of people slept better. And then when someone doesn't, we call it paradoxical. But if we wanted to, we could look at the individual and their body chemistry and view them and understand that everybody has different bioindividuality, instead of just looking at their symptoms and pigeonholing them into a basket like that. So what we want to understand when we're looking at the downsides of using glycine is that these downsides are only going to come for some individuals. Let's look at the benefits and see why that might be a downside. Well, here we see that it lowers blood pressure. Well, for some people, that's going to be a problem. Somebody already have low blood pressure is really going to magnify that issue. If you bring it down too low, you can see issues like dizziness or even depression. I'm going to put a link to a study in the description below on a paper from the University of Florida that describes this as glycine has a method to trigger massive depression. And when we look at depression with clients, we almost always see these low blood pressure issues where the blood pressure is really low because minerals in the system are very low, and when blood pressure is that low, it's more difficult for the body to send signals to the brain and signals from the brain back to the body, and they can become depressed. Now, there's certainly other causes of depression, but we see this as a really big deal, and now we're seeing someone taking something and creating this massive depression. Well, if they already have pretty low blood pressure, that could make a lot of sense. Let's look at these benefits of the muscle recovery. Well, it's pro-anabolic. Remember, that's a good thing. Help the body rebuild and repair. Well, it was Dr. Emmanuel Rivisi who helped us understand that this circadian rhythm is a really big deal. And we need to be in what's called the catabolic state during the day to kind of keep the body going all day. But it has to move into this anabolic state at night to help the body rebuild and repair. Well, the problem is some people can get stuck in one of those states most of the time, or really pushed far into one of those states. So if someone's already stuck in this anabolic state most of the time, it has the ability to create major health issues like chronic constipation, anxiety, tachycardia, hypoglycemic type reactions. So if somebody's already having problems from being too far in that anabolic state, and they're going to take all these scoops, do another scoop of glycine, they're going to throw gas on the fire. They're really going to magnify the problems that imbalance is creating. When we're looking at this insulin sensitivity issue, oh man, we're really going to fix this insulin resistance. Well, what about somebody whose insulin is already acting a little bit like a bully, and it's processing glucose and sugars too efficiently, and now they're becoming hypoglycemic and they're experiencing these sugar crashes and really magnifying a lot of the health issues that they're experiencing. Well, if we magnify that, we're going to magnify the hypoglycemic issues. We see people experiencing things like dizzy spells and lightheadedness when they're supplementing with large amounts of glycine. Well, that's something that happens when sugars and minerals both go too low at the same time. So you put somebody that has low blood pressure and they're hypoglycemic, I might call them names before I told them to take glycine, because they're going to create some real trouble. Now, when we're looking at sleep, and this has the ability to really, really improve sleep for a lot of people, but if someone is leaning too far on this anabolic side, it has the ability to really magnify some of these things that we see with this hypoglycemia. So now they're creating these sugar crashes in the middle of the night, which really raises cortisol and stresses the body out. We're running out of fuel. What are we going to do here? And then it wakes the person up and they can't go back to sleep. So just because somebody pushing further into this anabolic state at night so they can sleep better is going to help one person, that's one of the things that helped me sleep better. I was a major insomniac because I was stuck in this catabolic state all the time. And taking steps to push my body more anabolic really helped me sleep. But just being more in that anabolic state doesn't always make someone sleep better if it's creating these other problems. So when we're thinking about who should not supplement with glycine, we want to think about, well, somebody with low blood pressure. And anything below 112, where that's systolic or the top number is below 112, we consider that low blood pressure. But I think the people that are really going to experience symptoms here is when that systolic is down more like 100 or even lower than that. They could really magnify symptoms by using glycine. Maybe if someone's leaning too far on that anabolic side, I'm not going to get too far into figuring out how to figure that out. We have a totally free digestion course that walks people through simple self-tests that they can do at home, using tools they pick up at a pharmacy or a health food store to really get an idea of, are they leaning too far on that anabolic or catabolic side. And I'll put a link in the description below for our understanding an anabolic imbalance if you feel like that might be a problem for you. But a lot of the common symptoms are that chronic constipation, tachycardia, anxiety, hypoglycemic type reactions. And a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, glycine has been shown to help a lot of people with anxiety. And we have to understand that anxiety has more than one possible underlying causes. A lot of people experience anxiety because they're really stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight state. And the body's really stressed out and freaking out. And so that makes the person have a lot of anxiety issues. But anxiety can also come from being too far in this anabolic state where the body uses fermentation to create a lot of its energy, and that can create a lot of lactic acid. And lactic acid going very high has the ability to create anxiety. So again, just looking at a person's symptoms and treating them off of that symptoms is a great way to make somebody feel a whole lot worse and maybe somebody else feel better. You're just throwing darts at the remedy dartboard when you're just approaching symptoms. We want to look at the person that's experiencing those symptoms. Somebody else that might not want to use glycine is, pregnant and nursing, of course. We always throw that in because who wants that kind of trouble? There's some medications that glycine seems to have the ability to interact with, so you'd want to Google any medications that you're taking and talk to your doctor about that before you started supplementing with glycine. But if you're one of these people who really wants some of these benefits, maybe you like the anti-aging kind of stuff, but you don't want to create trouble and you're in one of these categories, we can get glycine from food sources. If we're getting glycine from food, it's not coming in as a singular nutrient with its ability to push our body chemistry hard in one direction. When it comes in with all of these other nutrients and other nutrient cofactors that are supposed to come into our body with it, then it doesn't have the ability to create these imbalances that using a singular amino acid has the ability to do. So we like to look at foods, like the biggest one is bone broth. Bone broth takes all of these foods and these bones, has all this cartilage and bone marrow and all these things that hold all these nutrients, and then we cook it in water for days at a time. That really makes all those nutrients go into this liquid, and now they just go right into the system. A person doesn't need to digest bone broth, it just goes right in. So if a person's having digestive malfunctions, they can bring in bone broth and get those nutrients without needing to break them down properly. We can also look at other foods that can be helpful. Things like animal skins and cartilage, like if you're eating ribs, you get some of those crunchy parts, that can be really good. Chicken skin can be very helpful. Dark meat poultry can have a lot of glycine, and so can some good seafood options. Gelatin is an excellent source. Just don't get the cheap stuff at the grocery store. You want a good grass-fed beef gelatin. Some collagen supplements can be very helpful that would bring in more nutrients than just the glycine alone. And if someone's a vegetarian, you know, pumpkin seeds can be pretty good. That spirulina stuff can be okay, but just understand that if you're eating vegetarian, you're going to have a hard time really getting glycine in. You might need to do some supplementing if you're just eating vegetarian. So if someone can really benefit from glycine, I like to see them supplement with some glycine, but also get some from food sources so they're getting all those other cofactors and balancing things out a little bit. But remember, these food sources aren't going to help if you can't digest them correctly. And if you're not sure if you have digestive problems or not, we'll have a link in the description below for our video on 20 signs you're not digesting your food correctly. So I hope that helps you understand some of the benefits that can come from glycine, but also helps you figure out if it's really right for you or not. And right now, if you want to learn more about that anabolic imbalance to see if that could be creating trouble for you, you can jump over and check out our video on understanding an anabolic imbalance. And if you already know that you have digestive issues restricting your ability to access glycine, you can check out our video on full digestive reset. I can't wait to hear about your results.